Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to use .NET Core 7 Web API that was built using the Cosmos DB, that one, and then a .NET Core 7 Razor View MVC application. We're going to use these two, add the Docker support. Using the Docker support, we're going to build an image, push it to the Docker Hub, and then we will use those image and deploy to the Azure Web App service. And we will see how these two applications are working in the container. Come, let's get started. Alright, here's the thing. So we're gonna go to the application and I'll explain you what application. This application is there in the GitHub repository, so do not worry about it. So the first project, we already had Docker support. That's nothing but the .NET Core 7 Cosmos DB Web API that we saw, right? So that is the application. And the second one is just a MVC application. It's a bare simple application just for the demo purpose. Okay, it does not have too much of UI. Now if you go to hub.docker.com, I have logged in with my credential. There is no repository. I'm going to create a repository from the start. If you've seen my previous video, I've cleaned up everything, just fresh start. Okay, I will have the repository name as Task Manager API. Probably I can give some description, and I'm going to choose this as a public repository. Okay, I created it, and then I will also go to repository. I created two repositories now. Okay, one is the Task Manager Web API and then the Task Manager Web App. Alright, so two repository in the Docker Hub. Great. Now I will go to the coding that is present in my machine, and I'm going to go to that URL, this one, and say cmd. This will eventually bring up that location into your command prompt. Okay, so this video is all about Docker and publishing this into Docker Hub and deploying it to the Azure Web App service and deploying this to the Azure Web Service, right? So if you run this Docker desktop right now, there is no containers, no images present. Okay, so if I run command called Docker's image, there is nothing coming up because everything is clean up. I am using Docker login to login after that. So now it's logged in, all good. I'm going to build the project of the web API. So we will use command called docker build -t followed by the name, username, repository name, tag name. So username is learn smart coding, and then I'm going to name this one, the task manager API, and then I'm going to version it as the tagging version as 1.0. okay, so once I do this, and then -f followed by my Docker file location. So /, my Docker file is sitting inside this project, this folder. Inside this folder only Docker file is sitting. See, you see this Docker file is sitting inside this folder. So because I'm running it from the previous folder, I will say // inside this, the file name called Docker file, and then I will do a dot, which will be a current directory. Now this command is correct, so it's building up. It's going to create the image and keep it as ready. See, it's ready. It's tagged locally. It is tagged as 1.0. Now we will use Docker image. We saw that, and then we will tag it Docker tag followed by the current repository name, tag name, followed by the username / repository names tag name. The last three piece is related to the Docker Hub, and then we just simply push Docker push, and then we use the name of the tag that we used. Once we have that, if I refresh this, the build will be pushed here. It's done, it's all pushed. So if I go there and refresh, it should come up. Alright, let's go to tags. You see this version 1 is pushed. Now this building of Docker image, all these things we saw in the Docker getting started video. If you have not seen it, please go and see it. And this one, I'm just trying to recollect for the new users as well as my old subscribers, right? So we have pushed an image to one of the repository. Similarly, we will have to do the same thing for the second project, which is Task Manager Web App. The Task Manager Web App is .NET Core 7 Web MVC app. Okay, it has only one controller using that will eventually call one of the API of the API project. Okay, so we're going to see how these two projects is built, deployed, and how they talk to each other in the Azure. Okay, that's our ultimate goal of this video. Now for this, it's almost same. We will use docker build /t -t and then we will do a local build, and then followed by the project's location and the Docker file, because Docker file has all the definition of what has to be built. Okay, so once you specify this Docker file and then do a dot like the current directory, it will build, and then local image is built with the tag called task manager web app 1.0. That's a tag ID. Now using that tag ID, right, we will be able to tag it to the Docker Hub repository. That's what we're going to do now. So Docker space tag, and then we will say learn smart coding slash task manager web app colon 1.0. That is our locally built tag, and then we will use the repository tag. So for that we will say uh, space learn smart coding, that's my username, slash repository name, that's a task manager web app colon 1.0, that's the tag ID. Remember this, it's tagged locally. Now we will use the tag that we did, which is the second parameter, and we will push it to the Docker Hub. See, if you go to tags, it's pushed. Now we have two repository having properly tagged images. Now what we will do, we will use these two images in web app, Azure Web App. So go to the create web app in the Azure portal, and here you fill up the subscription, the resource group. I'm going to use one of my existing resource group because later I can clean up, and then give a specific name. So here LSC dash task manager API, that's my specific name. Container is Docker container, type is Linux OS, and then here you choose the single container, and then you leave it for now as you can actually choose Docker Hub here, and you can actually go to this repository, pick up the name here, so the username slash repository name. So you can also keep it here like this, and then give a tag ID. Tag is 1.0 colon 1.0. So Docker is filled up, networking, just leave it, just keep going with the existing one. In the application that I have already have the app inside, so it's better to do it, but I'm gonna leave it everything as default value and deploy it. So the deployment is in progress. Similarly, when it is happening, let's save some time, go and create a second one for the web API. The first one is web API, the second one is a web app. Okay, so the MVC Razor view app, it's all same. We're gonna give some name, use the Docker container, Linux is the OS, and then here you use the Docker Hub, go and choose the repository name here. If you go to the name, see this is the repository name, so you can choose this, and then the repository name is this one followed by the tag, and then leave everything as default, do a create. This is getting deployed. So the first one is already deployed, right? So let's go back to all resources, and let's go and filter it, go to the particular resource group. It's easy to go. So I'm going to open the first one. I clicked on it, and then you see this, if I click it, and then it's trying to open it. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to add Swagger. Now once it's loaded, see the application is now running in the container. Okay, we host it as a container. Great. And then not only that, you use the proper value because it's production, meaning we had the development environment settings and the real Azure service production environment, right? So it's gonna use that and retrieve some data. So we didn't get any exception, right? So there was no such user LSC, that's why we didn't get any data. Now what we will do is, because I added in my application, I already added the existing app insights. Whatever we are doing, okay, all the logs are properly logged. Okay, that's a very good thing. I will give you another example where you will add extensive logging using the Serilog, but I'm using the app insights along with the Serilog, so that this application, if anything goes wrong in the boot up also, this will turn up here. It takes some time for the telemetry to show up on the Azure portal, but eventually it will show up. Okay, similarly the second one also is loading now. See, if I go to any of these two things, it goes, but the third one, the task controller, if I click on task controller, it is giving us some exception. We don't know what exception is. This is the tricky thing and challenging thing. When you deploy your app, right, in your container or directly, if you don't have the logging mechanism, you have no idea what's going on. Of course, you can go to the diagnostic logging and see what's going on the app service, but it's always better to have the app insights. Anyway, so apps insights are configured now. If you go to the app insight of web app, something should come up here. See, some error is coming up here. So I can go check what is the 500 exception. I can actually click on it and see what's going on. So if I click on view all, it's going to describe more. All right. So I click on the top and say view all. The complete exception is shown. This complete exception is showing because I added the Serilog logging mechanism with the extensive logging. We will see in a separate video. That's why it's showing up all the logs. Okay, great. So now I know what is wrong. If you look at this controller, I am putting the base URL, which is the container URL. This is wrong. We deployed to a particular application, so we need to use the deployed application URL. Okay, so in Azure, when we deploy more than one container, the containers can talk to each other as long as there is no specific network configured. They all belong to the default network, and because they are hosted in the same Azure app service, okay, containers can talk to each other. So all what we need in the base URL is the URL where the application is deployed. Now because we made some code change, eventually we have to come up, do a new build, tag a new one, and deploy the latest tag. So this is also a good example of how you will continuously change your code and do a different versioning using the tags and build it and push it. That's what we are saying now. We tagged this as 2.0 now, okay, because just for demo purpose, generally it will go as 1.1, 1.11 or something like that, because it's small change, right? 2.0 is a major version change. Anyway, this is for demo purpose. We are showing you, I'm showing you how to do a different tag and push that new tag to the repository. The commands are same, so I'm going to use 2.0 as the tag, and this command will push the new task manager web app to the Docker repository. Okay, see, it's pushed. All right, so we tagged it in earlier, we now pushing it. So the first one that we saw was the tagging one, and then now the command that we used is to push it. Now if you go to Docker Hub, go to the particular repository and tags. This not this repository, so we need to go to the, okay, still it's building. That's why it's not there. Few seconds to build. Let's wait for it. All right, see, 2.0 tag that was pushed here, we got the latest one. So this is how you will do. Generally, when you don't use the deployment pipeline, if you have to do a redeployment, come to this deployment center of this particular app, and then here you come and change from 1.0 to 2.0, the new tag, or if you want to deploy the older version, come and change it. Now this is all manual. Upcoming videos will show you how to set up the CI/CD pipeline and change this automatic deployment very nicely. We will see in the upcoming videos, but for this video, stick to it. I'm changing the newer version by going to deployment center and changing the tag from 1.0 to 2.0. all right, now I'm going to load this application again, and when I click on the task, basically it should work now, but it is not working now. There is still something wrong. I can figure out using the app insights, but it is still giving us error. Okay, there will be some silly mistake I would have done, and I'm showing you all the mistakes that I'm doing so that you know what I'm doing. If you look at this, I missed to put the protocol. HTTPS protocol is not there. It was just a string, so it was not even calling it. Alright, I updated the line of code. Now definitely this time we should be able to make it, but I'm going to change this as 2.1 and gonna rebuild, retag, repush this latest one, and go back and update my deployment settings so that the latest version of my code is then deployed to this web app. Right? See, this is how generally it's an oversight mistake, or sometimes we will miss it, and that's how you will debug. And when you try to fix the problems, that's how you incrementally deploy the latest version. So the latest one is changed, so we just need to go to that task manager web app that we deployed, go to that particular app service, go to the deployment settings, and you see the tag, the latest tag is 2.1. so I'm going to change this tag to 2.1 so that the latest image has been deployed to the container. Okay, so all these hurdles, we will come across all these hurdles in an upcoming video where I'll show you how easy it is to set up the CI/CD pipeline in DevOps. We will do it. Now this time we should be able to make it. Now it's time to check. So I'm going to click on the task, and it should give us some data. Great. So once I click on the task, I'm now able to get the data. So basically the two containers, they're talking to each other. This container is able to call this container's endpoint and retrieve the data from the API. So this is how it works for the Docker. If you use Docker, and you can use the image from a different place to deploy to the Azure App Service, and you can see how the application is working. And we will similarly see how to use the Azure Container Registry in the next video. And thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!